Franco, thanks for accepting this interview. It's great to be with you. Let me start with this first question. What made you want to pursue architecture?
Okay, first of all, I want to pursue architecture because my whole childhood I lived in a house that my grandfather, who was an architect, designed. And so I was like really influenced by modern design because he lived in that era and tried to localize the modern theory into Argentina from where I am, and also trying to reshape that modern theory into what the possibilities that we had in our country at that time. So I was always involved and living in a house that is maybe not so common because also my grandfather was kind of social distance from the people. So for example, the house doesn't have a living room, and I couldn't understand that when I was living there and I was a child, and I went to my friend's house and always had a living room, so where people meet, for example. So all those things started to bother me a little bit, and I wanted to understand what they were in that way. Besides also being in contact with the Architectural Review, the magazine from here in the United States, that was in English and didn't know English, but that was an advantage actually because I focused only in the images of modern architecture at that time, and I tried to relate them to where I was living. So that fostered my curiosity about how architecture shapes our life. Of course, I didn't saw in that way when I was young, but then when I developed myself as an architect, I started understanding where I was seeking those answers during my childhood.
So since you were a child, you knew that architecture was the thing you really wanted to do.
It was the first thing that I wanted to do. And
at what age do you
It was like 5 years old, something
so
like that.
Really young.
Really young, yes, actually, yes.
Let me jump to question 2. How has your understanding of architecture evolved since you first started your journey?
That's quite funny because it's still evolving, actually. I think that we never stop evolving our understanding about architecture. It's always changing. No, because we are also learning new things because the field is also changing. So we always need to try to get into new ways of understanding architecture. But the first big change that I lived going in my career in architecture was from a material organization to a social construction. At the beginning, when I started undergraduate, I thought that was a field that was mainly physical. You intervene with physical objects, and when what you create was a physical element. But at that time, I didn't understand the implications itself about how they shape our society. This relates to my curiosity when I was a child and trying to understand also my house. Of course, when I was a child, I didn't understand really well how all this works, so I thought that was a physical intervention in our life, but actually it's a social construction. So that was the huge change that I feel in my career, and I'm still trying to figure out many things about that change in the understanding.
What's the most surprising thing you've learned since you've been here at GSAPP?
The most surprising thing that I learned is the scale of architecture. I think that was the second main change that I lived in my career. The first one was understanding that it's a social construction, and the second one is understanding the scale of that social construction. That can be the life of one people, or could be actually a community, or could be a country. You don't know the implications because you don't know also the scale. And the scale, I'm not talking about the physical scale of the element, I'm also talking about the scale of the implications that you are fostering with some intervention that is mainly physical, could be, but then the scale of what happened, how the people understand it, how the people live it, what the people theorize about it. Maybe they theorize things that you never realized or you never thought about what you were doing. So trying to understand that scale beyond the physical element, something like I surprised to coming here to start like going deeper in that point that I never thought about architecture in that way, the skill of architecture, but that was the main thing that surprised me, and of course in a good way when I came here to GSAPP, and I think that's one of the key elements of the program.
What are some of the major challenges you have faced since you started your architectural career, and how did you overcome them?
The main challenge is going through from the theory and the design to the build environment. I think that that's a step that as architects always struggle with. We always struggle because sometimes the theory doesn't match with the reality, the physical reality or the social reality, but also because maybe this is more practical. As I worked as an independent architect, is the part of the profession where I struggle the most, is how to make the people understand what you are looking as an architect and as a theorist also when you develop your design. So make your design build for someone who didn't think about that and is not thinking about that in the same way that you, because it doesn't have the same goals in their life when building that project. Is kind of difficult.
What's the biggest lie you've been told about becoming an architect?
The biggest lie that I have been told is that you learn how to do architecture, and I think that you never learn how to do architecture. You are your entire life trying to do it, and of course you try your best to do it in the best way possible, but there is no right answer. There is no right architecture or bad one, maybe, but it's always a path of trying and trying. So the huge lie that I have been told in my undergraduate is that there is a right way of doing architecture and there is a wrong way of doing architecture. But black and white doesn't exist in this field. It's always a gray area where you need to navigate and try to achieve your goals as an architect, yes.
If you could bulldoze and destroy a famous building done by a famous architect, which one would it be?
The one that I will bulldog is the rooftop Coop Hummingbird. I don't like it, sorry, but I think that the huge amount of effort in material effort, technological effort for spaces that feels really can be your home. I mean, it's not. I think that it's not, even though it's really well known in the constructivism movement. But for me, I think it's not conscious with the environment because of the huge effort, technological effort and material effort for achieving something that I don't know if scaled with the materials and environmental impact that it took.
If you could redesign a famous building or a famous piece of architecture done in the world, which one would it be?
I don't know if it is about redesigning, but for example, the TWA from Eurosalinen, the airport terminal, I would love if it will be like concrete without all the white plaster, because it's a really handmade building, and see all the handmade work put in that process, all the wood frames, all the nails that leave the marks and everything. I think that it will foster the shape that they achieve. That maybe when you put those white plaster, it becomes neutral. Maybe was the intention, but I would like it to be in concrete.
That's a good choice. What are your career plans after graduating from GSAPP?
As I've been working as an independent architect before coming here and a university professor back in my country, my plans are continuing in the academic field, actually, expanding of course my knowledge and my point of view about the architecture. That's why I choose also to come here. And still continue working as an independent architect, because I feel that from the academic you can root things in the practice, and you can say things to the practice, but also from the practice you learn how the real world, not real, but physical, I would say, outside academy works, in order to also foster your experience in the academic field. So I think that is a dialogue that is really interesting to have. I have been having it for a couple of years, and I'm really happy about that dialogue, the things that you learn from one side to be implemented in the other, and vice versa. So I pretended to still work in the academic field and in the practice.
Are you thinking about staying in New York after your graduation? Are you thinking about going back to your home country in Argentina?
At some point I'm going to go back to my home country in Argentina, but it's not that or I live here or I live there. I will try to live in both places, I mean, and to be present in both places. So I don't know if I'm going back just after graduation or a couple of years, but the intention is not that. It's that also maintain a dialogue between two really different cultures that I think that they can intervene and have intervene and work together and learn from one to each other because of our differences. So I think that also will be a nice dialogue to have in the professional field.
And do you also see your career somehow being in between the United States and Argentina, or do you see yourself at some point really coming back to Argentina and then trying to stay there, trying to stay in your home country?
I see, maybe of course because I am from there, I have my circle of people there, and I have developed all my career there. It will be easier for me at the beginning to focus in Argentina, because also I know really well how the country works. I know all the normatives, all the culture, because when you design, you are not designing for you are designing for another person. Exactly. So as the cultures are really different, you as an architect, when you start working as an independent, you start reading the client, you know how to read the people, and of course for me it's easier to read Argentinians, after that Latin Americans, and after that the people from United States. So I think that after my career, naturally I will be more focused in working in my home country, because it's a place that I know, but the intention is always to come back here and maintain this dialogue between Latin America, that in general is really similar. We have kind of the same issues. Of course, we are different in some aspect, but we are kind of similar. And here in the United States, of course.
Any advices you would give to a high school student who would want to pursue architecture?
I have one, maybe, that is not seek to learn things, just seek to learn how to learn. That's the most important thing, because you as an architect are not going to stop learning anytime, neither when you talk with a client or when you talk with a construction manager or anyone. You are always learning. So the thing in the undergraduate and then in the graduate program is not learn how to learn how to do things, but learn how to learn actually.
Excellent. Thank you for accepting this interview, Franco. It was great.
Thank you for the possibility of having this great moment and for the really interesting questions.
Amazing. Thanks.